What is going on, everyone? It is me, the Lone Vault Wanderer, here with a video on Prey. Now, before I get started, I am going to be incredibly busy this week. I'm actually moving apartments, which is really exciting, but it's just me literally moving all of my current shit, including my PC, TV, etc., to another apartment in my small fucking car, assembling furniture. It's just going to be a crazy week, so I have no idea how many videos I want to be able to make. I definitely know that I won't be on the podcast either, so please bear with me as I'm going through this, but fuck, it's going to be worth it in the end. It really is. Anyways, today I'm making a video on Prey. Now, I've never necessarily been a fan of Prey. It's something that is on my radar simply because of this channel's somewhat of a focus towards Bethesda games. And of course, I watched Bethesda's E3 press conference this year quite attentively, like I did with any other publisher. And before I get started on the particular topic of this video, I do want to say that please excuse my ignorance when I do talk about Prey, if I ever decide to make another video on it, or even in this video, because I know a lot of people have said that this is not the Prey they wanted. Why is it called Prey? Prey 2 was looking so much better, all of that stuff. And that stems from the fact that many fans of the original Prey and what Prey 2 was meant to be feel like this particular Prey is being taken in a different direction. And because I've never been a fan of Prey, and because I never play those games, I can't necessarily speak to that, and to be honest, I'm a bit ignorant of that fact. I don't necessarily understand why this Prey is actually different to the previous Preys and to what they used to be. So if I do speak about Prey, just know that I really have no idea about some of the grievances that fans of the original Prey had. And maybe you can let me know, if you are such a fan, in the comments below, why this Prey is different, because I get it, you know. I would get if a game that I loved completely changed direction and wasn't what I had envisioned it to be. So I do get it. If it happened to a game that I truly cherished, I'd probably feel the same way. But again, just please forgive my ignorance when I do talk about Prey and some of the things that I have to say in this video. So if you don't know, and I'll link it in the description below so you can have a look for yourself, but Bethesda Softworks on their YouTube channel released an official gameplay trailer for Prey, and this is called, or entitled, Version 2 Another You. And essentially, in Bethesda's own words, not mine, this is the first official gameplay trailer for Prey, but this time the protagonist is actually a woman. Goes by the same name of the protagonist that we have seen in previous trailers and previous gameplays of Prey, still called Morgan Yu, but this time simply the protagonist is shown as being female. And Bethesda says that while this choice won't change the story or how you interact with the world, because Morgan Yu is Morgan Yu, and he or she will be defined by the choices you make, and it's yet another way that Arcane is saying yes to the player. That's Bethesda's words again, not mine. The long and the short of it is that you can play Prey as either a male Morgan Yu or a female Morgan Yu. So the question for today's video is, what do you think of this particular decision? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll get into my thoughts now. So before I talk about this particular decision and Prey allowing you to play as both a male and female Morgan Yu, I do want to clarify that never would I ever look at a particular game that's decided to take a certain direction with a story and tell the story of a certain character, whether that character is male, whether that character is female, whether the game allows you to play both as male or female. Never would I look at a game that has decided to take a certain direction because of the artistic vision of the developer and say, they should have done this. For example, if a game had a male protagonist, never would I really say, you should have allowed us to play as a woman. Equally, if a game decided to have a female protagonist, never would I say, for the sake of equality, for example, you should have allowed us to also play as a male. I think that the artistic vision of the developer is crucial here. Whatever story they want to tell is completely fine, and they should be allowed to tell whatever story with whatever characters, with whatever gender, with whatever race. It's all in their hands, essentially. And while I definitely, without a doubt, think that diversity is important, I don't think it's necessarily right to say that a certain game that's decided to portray a certain character or have a certain protagonist should be different for that reason. Again, if a developer wants to tell a story about a white male, then they have the right to do so. It's their story and no one else's. But as I touched on before, I am a huge fan of diversity, and I simply like when game developers and games do allow players to choose between playing as a male and playing as a female. It doesn't always make sense, don't get me wrong. Again, if you want to tell a certain story and it makes sense for your player or protagonist to be male or equally be female, then that's fine. But I do like that when it makes sense or when it's possible, say with an open world game for example, I do like the fact that some games, like Prey is doing now, allow you to play as both a male and a female. The fact is that gives players more choice, it gives players more liberty, they can decide to play as the character or the protagonist or the gender that suits them appropriately, so I am all for that. Again, I'm not stipulating that all games must do this, but all I'm saying is that when a game does do it, and when it makes sense, I like seeing it. And I particularly like the way Prey has approached this. I really like the way how they created this protagonist, Morgan Yu, picked an androgynous name like Morgan, have both male and female voice actors voice the character, and let players choose. I think that's an incredibly clever way, and it's what they did with Mass Effect, I believe. I haven't played those games, so forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe it's the case. It's an incredibly clever way to allow players to play the game with either gender. Dishonored 2 does something like that, but it's not quite the same. Dishonored 2 says you can play as Emily or you play as Corvo, and the story differs somewhat, and there are different gameplay abilities and different ways you can play based on the fact of whether you choose Emily or Corvo. So that's slightly different. What Prey does is say, it doesn't matter which gender you pick, whether it's the male Morgan or the female Morgan, they simply say, the story's going to be the same. All we've done is change the models for the characters a bit, is add in both male and female voice actors, pick that androgynous name so it makes sense, and said, you can choose. You can choose to play as a male or play as a female. And I really do honestly like that. I would never say that all games should do this in the future, but if it makes sense, then go for it. I think it's something that should be encouraged, not forced, not stipulated, but just encouraged. And when they do it, I think it's great. And not just in terms of equality and diversity, but also in terms of player choice. I mean, games are one of the greatest mediums in the world, and one of the most important underlying facets of video games and playing games is player choice on liberty. The fact that we can play certain games as we want, the fact that in certain games how we can customize, the fact how in certain games that we can play as different genders and play as different races and play as different characters to suit our own personality, for example. One of the most important features and facets of video games is player choice. And when a game like Prey is doing now adopts this very clever way to allow players to make their own choice, to say, look, you can play as a male and play as a female, I do think that's great, because as a whole, generally, diversity across the entire medium of games helps make for much more interesting stories across the board. Again, and I'll keep stressing this, I'm never going to say this game is bad because it doesn't let you play as a woman, or this game is bad because it doesn't let you play as a male. If that's the story that a particular developer wants to tell, then that's their absolute right to do so. But equally, if developers also as well want to say you can play as a male and you can play as a female, then that's also their right as well. And going back to my point, looking at the entire games medium as a whole, having different stories with different characters, with different protagonists, with different genders, with different races, it makes for more interesting storytelling across the board. Of course, it's great in terms of equality too, but also as well, it allows for more diverse stories to be told. So yes, I do really like how Arcane has approached this with Prey. That's the direction they want to take. It allows players to play as whatever gender they want, whether that's the female or male Morgan Yu. It lets us make that choice, and it's as simple as that. And I simply like that. I just wanted to make a video to say, I think that's cool. Not every game needs to do it. I will never criticize a game if they don't do it, but when a game and a developer does come around to do something like this, I think that's cool. So anyways, Wastelanders, let me know what you think about this topic in the comments below. And until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.